So in my ongoing series in my blog, which I've called Contra Columnus Quintis, or against the fifth column, and I'm now on just finished the 11th and going on to the 12th, the 12th installment. Um, no, I didn't do anything special for the fifth one, but the arrangement is a discussion of the entirety of the situation of fifthery in all its essential aspects, its modes of expression, and its manner of manifestation in the world. And in order to continue that discussion, so that I can bring into the fully concrete expression of the matter what fifthery is, I've had to discuss what I consider to be a tangential, well, more than tangential aspect, which is the biophysical and, in a direct sense, really a metaphysical way of understanding the nature of life as we know it in this world, so that I can make an appropriate analogy for what fifthery is in that context. And it's not necessarily going to be something that says, this is against nature. Actually, that's not what it's going to discover. What's going to be discovered is that nature is conducive to fifthery in this domain in accordance with the way it manifests as life in it. But nevertheless, there's obviously a scale, and the opportunism of life in order to survive and thrive is different. And obviously some are more evil than others. But the overall wrongness of it is built into the nature of it. But that's not what I'm starting off to show. What I'm starting off to show is that life has certain attributes in common with between the specimen and the species to which it belongs as a group, and how that compares with life in all its forms, even in other kingdoms. And the overall process of that similarity will not merely be in that they have certain attributes that are the same, but they have certain ways of acting and in relation to one another in the same species, and in relation to of one species to the other, and that this is an overall condition of life in this domain. One might make an exception for plant life up to a point, but the problem is, who the hell would want to be a plant? So the fact that man exists and that man understands this distinction only underscores that he has made a very bad choice in this possible world for doing so, and that most of the life forms that are between him and plant life, and we can go further below to other forms of life that are under the threshold of what you'd consider life, but that's the physical domain in its entirety, to include minerals and elements. But to go further into the nature of particles and how they manifest their form of life would be to broach the same subject up to a point, but it would be to diverge farther away from where we're heading, which are the ways that this parasitic life form attaches itself to and relates to and derives benefit from and manipulates the host life form, and there has to be a host for it. And the mechanisms of this system demonstrate that it is a parasitic life form. But to get to that, before explaining the foundation in objective terms, is to rush to the point. But to describe it in a biological analogy is certainly an objective approach. But if one thinks that this doesn't broach on the matter of morality, one is mistaken, because actually the only way to explain these phenomena at the level of man, for sure, is the appeal to a science of morality that is founded in a metaphysical principle. And that is done in the case of this metabiological approach. But that must be demonstrated in semiotic terms or cultural terms, or in other words, in terms of the cognitive behavior and the evaluative behavior of the human form of life. But it will still find analogs with all the other forms that I've been discussing, and it will be shown that evil is considered in its essence to be the parasitic, devouring form. And that's exactly what fifthery is. So on my blog, I'm discussing these matters, and I've already gotten to the 11th in that series. And the 12th is going to go further into the discussion of the foundation, so that I can relate the attributes of specimens to the attributes of the species, and in terms of the way specimens of the species relate to each other. And then I'll move on. That will be that next the next one I put up. My blog is named after the Zoroastrian prayer. The first 4 words of it: Ashem, Vohu, Vahishtem, Asti, and I put that in the notes down below. It should be visible under the video. The actual blog site is wenaolong at blogspot.com, and that goes straight to that channel, that blog page, and all the articles are in there, and they go quite far back, although I start them only after I began a serious consideration of these matters. And in fact, part of what spurred me on toward that change was the realization that there was more going on with internet topologies than I had suspected. But that's an event that I will discuss later, or I've already, in fact, discussed somewhere in my blog or in one of my videos. But yes, as I mentioned, and it's very important in this context, the demonstration of psychological warfare operations taking place in order to reinforce rackets that have the ramifications that they do legally and spiritually, let's just say morally, or even just in terms of making sense of your world. The existence of these sorts of rackets, it demonstrates fundamentally that there is a malevolent intent involved, and so that there is a tangible element of coercion, so that the term gaslighting, which refers to this process insofar as it attempts to subvert the person's worldview in some way, and cause them to reach altered states of their own paradigm, which wouldn't have been appropriate if they hadn't performed these acts of gaslighting. And therefore, the only reason they've taken place is they've been coerced into taking place or manipulated. And these can work conjointly, as in all fraud. The same thing goes for confidence tricksters, and whenever in their approach for assuaging the doubt or critical thinking of the person who's being duped. And so, go away, it's just me. It's all right, buddy, I'm by myself over here. I'll get you right in the nozzle with this. You won't like it.